clearly there's a lot of detail in the book that we haven't got time to go into. One thing that I do want to ask you about is the more sort of salacious aspect of what was found at the Tate property.
Yeah.
Because Roman Polanski, this famous film director who was married to Sharon Tate, she's, 8 months pregnant when she gets murdered. He's in England making a film.
Yeah, Day of the Dolphin.
Conveniently. I don't know whether you suspect any involvement of Polanski in the murders.
No, there is a theory that basically, that she was sacrificed for him, and it was something to do with Alex Sanders initiating her into witchcraft on the set of The Eye of the Devil. That transpires is a lie. He never did that. He admitted that he lied many years later.
So after the murders, obviously the police search the house, and there's films up in the loft.
Well,
so just tell us about that.
Well, the police weren't the first people to get there, were they? Like the first people to get there were Rudy Altabelli, who's the owner of Cielo Drive, who claims to be in the mafia and is a drug dealer.
Right.
Jack Nicholson, the actor.
Yeah.
And Robert Evans, the producer. Robert Evans.
Were the police not there in the morning?
This has never been sort of like, the timeline's very, very strange about this. They turned up and cleaned the place, right? Robert Evans, for people that don't know, okay, is a film producer who's
because people might not be following this, this is a murder scene of 5 people who've been gruesomely murdered, right, with knives, and some shot and strung up by the neck in the living room. Very, very gruesome scene. Yeah. Which you think was a drug deal stroke robbery gone wrong, perhaps, right? All the details are in the book. We haven't got time to go in the murder scene and all of that,
we'll get
because it's all in the book, the murder scene and the evidence of the phone line being cut and the position of the various victims and all of that, right? It's all in all that detail. But this is an extremely gruesome murder scene. Yeah. You're saying that there's possibly Jack Nicholson,
the actor, Robert Evans, the world famous producer, and Rudy Altabelli, who's the owner of the property,
right, are possibly turned up at the property before the police, and they're trying to
they sanitize
turned up on
the
murder scene.
Well, this is what they said. This is admitted that they turned up and they cleaned the place so that Roman Polanski wouldn't be horrified when he arrived. What's really strange is that when Roman Polanski actually came back, Robert Evans, who was his friend, he put him up in a suite at the Hollywood studio that he was working, that had just recently been vacated by Julie Andrews. He charged him for it, though. Top whack. Rudy Altabelli, who'd been there to clean up and get rid of the blood stains, so that Roman Polanski wouldn't have to see this horrific scene. Yeah. Except he didn't get rid of the blood stains. Pig was still written on the door. The blood was on the carpet. Rudy Altabelli kept the blood stains as they were for the entire time that he stayed at the property. In fact, it wasn't until the 90s that the door was finally sold on to Trent Reznor, and he used to show his guests, look, this is Sharon Tate's blood. He sued Roman Polanski for ruining his decor and refused to give him back his deposit.
Right. Well, I've seen an interview. I watched an interview with Roman Polanski of his, Clive James, I think it was, and it's, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth like in that interview, and but he's rumoured to have been into drugs and making strange films.
Ferdinand Main,
basically. Kind you see on the movies.
Yeah.
So tell us what was found in the loft.
Oh, right, so porn, essentially.
Homemade porn.
Homemade celebrity porn. Now, again, this is one of the things that Manson talks about Dennis Wilson owning a VCR-type player on which they would watch traded celebrity porn. He makes reference to Jane Fonda trying to get him in bed.
Now, hang on a minute. So there will be, I know I'll get emails from that, VCR, 1960.
Whatever, a tape-playing machine.
Which were available, if you had a lot of money in 1969, there was technology that you could buy, it cost a fortune, to be able to record and play in your own house. So it probably wasn't an actual VCR.
No, that type of thing. But that's the point. It was so incredibly out there for someone to have something like that.
But someone like Polanski would have all that.
Well, he apparently did, as did Dennis Wilson. The Manson group were proven to be filming pornography in various places, but essentially what was found at Cielo Drive and denied initially, and then basically they told a sort of half story, which was there was one film that was Roman Polanski making love to his wife Sharon. What was actually revealed by a detective called Hal Lipsett throughout later on was that the LAPD got there and seized these tapes and then were trying to sell them on. And these were pornography tapes. There were tapes like there was an orgy with Mama Cass, Warren Beatty, and Yul Brynner. There was a homosexual tryst between Peter Sellers and Yul Brynner.
So Peter Sellers is having sex with Yul Brynner?
Apparently in this this film. Yeah, this has been confirmed again by a number of people, including, in the interview with Ronald Reagan Jr., Charles Manson basically says, did he tell you about that? Did he tell you about Yul Brynner and Peter Sellers in the closet with each other?
Let me just play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Why would all of these celebrities with these? Because Peter Falk is involved as well in one of them, is he?
No, Peter Falk was basically. The suggestion is that he hooked up with Manson whilst he was working on this film about Jesus with Gary Stromberg.
Right.
When Manson was in Vacaville, which was after the murders and stuff like that, he was put on some really heavy tranquilizers and started writing letters to loads of people, revealing all these celebrities that he used to know. And he claims, he wrote to a bloke called Bill Dakota, who was in this gossip magazine in Hollywood. And in this letter, he claims that whilst he was at Universal Studios, he had sexual liaisons with Peter Falk, and the Robert Conran, who was the lead actor in Wild West. Columbo and Wild West.
So Manson claims to have had sex with Columbo.
Yeah.
Right.
Interestingly, Columbo turned up every single day of the trial.
Yeah, this is what it's mentioned in the book, that Columbo's there watching this trial.
Yeah.
Right. And a whole load of other
celebs turned up, yeah.
Steve McQueen?
Steve McQueen was, well, I think Steve McQueen avoided it because, but he certainly was interested in it.
Yeah.
Because at one point,
there's a lot
Keith
of
Moon told him that some of the Manson lot were hiding under his house. Keith Moon was his next door neighbour.
Right. So a lot of sort of celebrities who might have been involved in making such films or taking drugs.
Yeah.
They're being protected?
Very possibly. I mean, what happened was basically the LAPD tried to sell these tapes. They kept them for a while, declined that they existed, and then a few years later they were trying to sell them. And a private investigator called Hal Lipsett apparently got hold of some copies of this and made this public, at which point it all sort of disappeared. Because
So why would a celebrity do that then? Because they're just compromising themselves.
Have you seen Paris Hilton?
Paris Hilton. What, the film?
Well, yeah, you know, people make sex tapes.
Like, yeah. Well, yes, of course. But what, are they're just under the influence? Do you think it was maybe they didn't think because camcorders were not readily available at the time?
It's
so
a bit of
it was a new thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
It's a bit of excitement. You know, they're all you know. There's this ongoing party that's at Terry Melcher's house, and
they're all on God knows what drugs.
Yeah,
or whatever.
yeah. And the mamas and the
and brings the camera out.
Yeah, absolutely, and they have an orgy. I mean, this was a time when orgies and free sex was a concept that was out there. This is partly sort of the concept of the commune and stuff like that. That it gives you the opportunity to be involved in that type of sex. I mean, that's essentially what attracted Dennis Wilson to the Manson group. An interesting point about the Manson orgies was that they were bisexual.
Yeah, because Manson wasn't bothered, was he? He would have it off for men as well, wouldn't he?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a strong suggestion that was another reason why they had to sort of like distance the Beach Boys from the case and to introduce the concept of the Beatles. Was because basically Manson and Dennis were lovers.
Do you think that then? Because
Was it
refuted by Wilson?
No, he died before he basically drowned before he could. Nobody really ever asked him. There's a whole series of quotes from other people that are probably a bit too graphic for me to say on this program, but they're in the book, indicating sexual acts involving Manson and Dennis Wilson. People like Sandy Good, who was a follower of Manson, has said in various interviews that basically Dennis loved Manson. They were really, really in love. Manson was asked basically when he was on trial, if you could see Dennis right now, what would you say to him? He says, I wouldn't say anything. I'd just make love to him.
Right. All right. Now, just one other thing. We're not saying that Manson's we're not letting him off the hook for being a very dangerous
he's an incredibly dangerous person, yeah.
Because you believe he did murder at least one person.
I think he was,
and slashed the face of Hinman.
He slashed the face of Gary Hinman. I believe he was present for the murder of Abigail Folger and Wojciech Wachowski. Right. I believe that he was involved in some sort of murder when he was younger in Mexico. And he certainly shot Bernard Lotzapapa Crow and believed that he'd killed him. So, I mean, That's the sort of thing. I think the best thing would be if I now just explain sort of how it sort of spiraled from the Gary Hinman case and explained exactly what happened.